The Book of Right Changes comes from the Book of Changes. Have you ever heard of the Book of Changes? It might be so strange. The Book of Changes, also known as I Ching, or the Changes of Zhou, is an ancient Chinese text. The Book of Changes is a book that literally foretells big changes in human history. Therefore, in the East, they can predict the future through this book. It is not simply a book of divination, but a guide to understanding the ever-changing world and finding harmony within it. And the changes are symbolized by the diagram called 8 trigrams, the Pulgado, which has 3 in all human history to date. Simply put, there are 3 huge changes in human history for tens of thousands of years. And one change consists of 8 changes, each called 8 trigrams. Would you like to travel back in time with me to find the origin of the 8 trigrams? My imagination is running a bit wild. Ha ha. In the primitive Paleolithic era, when people depended on luck to survive through hunting and gathering, Emperor Fu Shi was deeply troubled by the plight of his people. He pondered how to alleviate their hunger and hardship. And after much deliberation, he finally came up with a solution. He invented the fishing net by weaving ropes together, which allowed people to catch fish and alleviate the famine. When he governed the country, a dragon horse emerged from the Ha River, Yellow River in English, carrying a mysterious diagram on its back. This diagram was called the Hado, or drawing from the Ha River, because it came from the Ha River. Alternatively, it was also called the Yang Do, or dragon's drawing, because it was carried by a dragon. Fu Shi saw this and was inspired to create the first 8 trigrams. It is a set of 8 trigrams that represent the fundamental principles of reality. They are used in divination, feng shui, and other Chinese arts and sciences. Thousands of years later, around the time of the founding of the first Chinese dynasty, the Xia dynasty, in 2070 BC, another miraculous event occurred. Gun had been tasked with controlling the flooding of the river. He spent 9 years building a series of dikes and dams. But his efforts were unsuccessful. And Gun's son, Yu, took up the task of controlling the floods. He worked for 13 years, traveling all over the country to survey the land and develop a plan. He is said to have passed by his own house 3 times during this time. But he never went inside. One day, a black turtle with a mysterious diagram on its back emerged from the Lu River, which is a tributary of the Ha River, Yellow River. This diagram was called the Lu So, or writing from the Lu River, because it came from the river. It was also called the Guiso, or turtle's writing, because it was found on the back of a turtle. He used the principles of the drawing to divide the country into 9 regions after Yu became the first king in the Xia dynasty, First Dynasty, through successfully completing the flood control project. How sincere and devout must Fu Shi and Yu have been to have summoned such wondrous creatures? Did their unwavering love for the people, their virtuous acts, and their desperate, heartfelt efforts to save them in times of crisis draw forth these divine creatures? Or were they perhaps heaven's response to their earnest pleas? Could they simply be exaggerated tales by later generations, shrouded in myth? Despite the diverse interpretations, the existence of the drawings remains irrefutable. These enigmatic diagrams, even to this day, serve as the origin of the word duoso, the combination of the last syllables of hado and luso in Korean meaning drawing and writing. So they call the building of collections of drawing and writing duoso guan, a library where people gathered to seek knowledge and enlightenment. Over 1,000 years later, during the late Shang dynasty, King Zhou was known for his debauchery and tyranny. Especially King Zhou's cruelty is evident in his use of a horrific torture device, known as the pit of burning oil. This device consisted of a pit filled with hot oil, over which a copper pillar was placed horizontally. Prisoners were forced to walk across the hot and slippery pillar, often resulting in severe burns or death. In contrast, the leader of the Zhou tribe, Wen Wang, cared for the well-being of his people and gained their trust. This displeased King Zhou, who imprisoned Wen Wang for 7 years. During this time of tyranny, Wen Wang, deeply concerned about the suffering people, drew the second set of 8 trigrams. After the fall of the Shang dynasty, the Zhou dynasty emerged, fulfilling the people's desire for a new and ideal ruler. The Zhou dynasty became the longest-lasting dynasty in Chinese history, ruling for 790 years. This period is considered the Golden Age of ancient China. The Zhou dynasty, which had prospered for centuries, eventually declined, leading to a cycle of dynasties rising and falling. The emergence of the Hado and the first 8 trigrams is shrouded in the mists of prehistory. According to the Book of the Right Changes, this occurred after the discovery of fire, but before the development of agriculture. If we assume this period to be approximately 10,000 years ago, in other words, assuming it is 8000 BC, then, around 8000 BC, Hado, drawing from Ha River and Fuxi's 8 trigrams appeared. 6,000 years later, writing from the Lu River appeared around 2100 BC. Another 1,000 years later, King Wen's 8 trigrams appeared around 1040 BC. Another 3,000 years later, the 8 trigrams for right changes are created in 1885 AD. The Book of Changes has indeed unfolded alongside humanity, in such a magnificent way. It has guided our path through the long ages, leading countless changes, both great and small. We have all come to this place by going through big and small changes in our lives. In life, we experience ourselves changing from students to spouses, parents, and members of society through major changes such as entering school, getting married, having children, and getting a job. The Book of Changes also tells us about huge changes of the world like these in our lives in advance. By understanding the context of the Book of Changes, we can better equip ourselves to navigate the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. So what is the Book of Changes trying to tell us now? We should pay attention to the changes in this world. Thank you.